Hey Scrappy people, it's Traci Reed here today, coming at you in Photoshop, setting up a 9x12 spread using my new driver collection. One half of the spread is going to be a 9x12 layout, the other half is going to be a pocket page. So I am using Photoshop to set up my pocket page and my 12x12 layout before printing it and moving it into the real world. I do this when I'm using a digital collection that I don't necessarily want to print the entire thing. So I don't need to be printing the entire new driver collection because I'm just working on this one layout. So this is a great way to pre-plan my layout so that I only print what I need. One of my most common questions about digital and hybrid scrapbooking, digital product, is how to keep from wasting paper. And this is how I like to do it. I like to plan ahead and only print what I need. And also, I only have 8.5 by 11 paper, so I'm going to need to be able to print papers for my 9x12 layout on 8.5 by 11 paper, even though I do have a printer that will print up to 12 or larger than 12 inches. I could print a 12x12 all by myself or all by itself if I wanted to. I don't like buying large paper because it's expensive, so I like to save some money and hack together layouts that need 12-inch papers by going a different direction. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. Right now you can see that I've pulled in some of the digital embellishments from the new driver collection, and I'm just kind of sorting them and resizing them and putting them where I want to put them. So that is one of the advantages of digital scrapbooking, is that if something is too large for what I want it to be, I can just resize it, make it a little bit smaller, and that really works well when it comes to pocket scrapbooking, especially since you have such a small canvas. I'm also creating my own cards with papers from the collection, and I'm doing that by just dragging and dropping them over the templates that I have created for each placeholder card. And I've talked about how to do this in the past. There are videos in my playlist called Digital Tips and Tricks, I believe, about how to use templates, how to create your own cut sheets. So I'm not going to be covering either of those topics with this video. We're just kind of watching me put this together because I have other videos that talk about how to do this. And I know that Photoshop can be scary for some people, but really once you learn basically the beginner ropes of it, it's really not that hard to use for scrapbooking and adding digital tips and tricks to your pages. So you can see at this point I'm just sort of resizing everything a little bit smaller. In my pocket scrapbooking, I prefer my photos to not take up the entire pocket because I like to create a lot of layers, whether I'm doing it digitally or doing it with just straight paper scrapbooking. Layers are my thing. That is why I really love being able to resize things in Photoshop, because you can see how much smaller I made that little faux driver's license so that it would fit behind the photo in that pocket. It's just such a great advantage. And when you plan ahead like this and sort of set up your layout in Photoshop in advance, you can see just what size they need to be to work with your specific configuration. So I'm just adding a little white stroke to the photos so I can visualize it better. I will erase that stroke before the white outline. I will erase the white outline before I print it because I'm just going to print my photos and then I will compensate for the white outline by trimming it just a little bit larger than the photo to create a white border. So when I print this, I'm going to print it in layers. I could print the cards exactly how they are when I go to print this, so I could print it with all of the word art and layers all together, but I prefer to print my hybrid stuff in layers and just reassemble it when I get to that point, because I feel like I can adjust where I need to adjust, and it creates a little bit more depth with these digital embellishments than if I just print it flat. I'm going to be adding physical embellishments from the Bro & Co collection that I designed for Simple Stories a couple years ago. Pro tip, I actually used a very similar color palette to this collection, plus a lot of the icons from this collection for the Bro & Co collection, so it matches really well. So I'm going to pull out some of the more less driving themed embellishments from that collection to finish off this spread. Another advantage you can see here is I'm rotating this paper and making it smaller to create that journaling card and put the plaid on it, or plaid paper on a diagonal. I kind of struggled with this top one a little bit with what I wanted in the background. I initially put that white paper in the background with some arrows and I didn't really love it, so I'm actually going to go in and delete it and change it here in a minute, but I'm just kind of trying to figure out what size I need the embellishments to be more than anything else, because I can change up what I'm doing in Photoshop when I go to print. So I decided to go with this tire tread background instead, which makes that frame moot, so I'm going to delete it, and then I'm just going to map my photo with a color instead. I just do that by making my photo just slightly larger and using it as a template for the paper that I want to use as a mat. I don't bother to go in and create a new rectangle or anything. It's easier just to make the photo just a little bit larger. That way you already have the appropriate size anyway. I decided I wanted to go with a circle motif since there were a lot of circles in this collection, so I'm going to add in some more of these sort of warning signs for the driving stuff. So no cell phones, keep your hands at 10 and 2. That photo is hilarious. That was the first time I took him out to drive. Go slow. Okay, so this is the base for my layout. I'm going to create a text path here so I can write my journaling, add it in before I print. So I'm just using my pen tool and creating a path around the tire treads on the card itself plus the embellishments that I added. I'm going to print this card with the car directly on it. I'm not going to bother printing that by itself. So I'm going to add in my journaling as well, but I will print that go slow flare separately and add that in. So I added in my journaling. Now I'm going to create some cut sheets, and I've already shown how to do this in previous videos, but basically you just take everything over to an 8.5 by 11 canvas and spread it out so that it can print and you can cut it easily. You can see I did that here. This is the only thing that I'm going to send to the silhouette. Everything else had straight lines. So I'm just sort of rearranging everything and making sure that I can make it fit before I save it as a PNG file and send it to the Silhouette software to print and cut. And I have a video on my homepage of my YouTube channel that talks about how to print and cut super easily in Photoshop or in Silhouette software. So this is where we're going to get to the life hack of how to print for your 12 by 12 layout on 8.5 by 11 paper. So the thing is that you're never going to be able to get a 12-inch piece of paper on 8.5 by 11 paper. That's just not going to happen. The dimensions don't work. But I can get papers for my 9 by 12 layout on 8.5 by 11 paper if I'm really careful about how I do it. So obviously 9 inches is smaller than 11 inches, so that's kind of where you have that wiggle room. But I can't print the full 9 by 12 backgrounds that I'm using for this page. So what I'm going to do instead is everything that's going to go under the one main mat that I'm creating underneath these photos is going to be cut in paper strips. So what that does is it allows me to print a 9-inch across paper strip on 8.5 by 11 paper if I just rotate it so that it's goes the direction of the 11-inch side of the paper. So you can see I'm adding in papers here, and I'm going to print that card as well, but I'm not going to set up this page too much beyond just making sure that my paper strips are the right size, because I'm going to definitely design this page more in real life than in Photoshop. So now that I've got all of my papers ready to go, you can see I'm going to use my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to draw a box around the center of the papers, or actually on the top and the bottom of the papers, and I'm going to just create paper strips instead of keeping all of that middle portion of those papers that I do not need for my layout to work. And you'll see I'm about to go into real life, and you'll see how those paper strips work. All right, so here we are. Everything's laid out just like it was in Photoshop, and now it just needs to be reassembled. You can see that I printed those paper strips, and I'm adhering everything just to a scrap piece of 9.5 or 9 by 12 cardstock in a color that I would not use. So I'm going to adhere this middle strip, and then I'm just going to tuck the paper strips in the top and the bottom of that middle block. After I wanted some tears, add a little texture. After I do that, I'm just going to tuck them in, and it will look just like it did in Photoshop without having all that extra paper waste underneath that blue mat that I don't need. So this not only makes it so that I could print it easily, but it also made it so that I don't waste paper when I'm printing. I don't waste paper, I don't waste ink, just what I need. And you can't even tell that those papers don't fully go underneath that mat. So I'm going to work on the pocket portion of this page first, and I'm just going to reassemble everything like it was in Photoshop, and then I will add embellishments on top of it, real life embellishments. And since you've already seen how it got put together, I'm just going to fast forward through that part so this video isn't insanely long. But you can see I'm pulling out the Bro and Co embellishments, and they match perfectly, and I'm going to use them heavily on the 9 by 12 side, but they're going to be added in to the pocket side as well, so that everything sort of flows together and matches. So I have the two main photos on the right hand side here, plus I want this license to drive card, but I had printed out that mat in blue and the card is blue, so it needed a little bit of delineation. So I also printed out this frame just in case I needed it, and I'm just going to use it as a photo mat instead of a frame. Cut it down and re-adhere it. And since I'm going to be sort of tucking it in underneath the photo, I'm not too concerned about it. Looks good, can't even tell. So some of these embellishments now, or actually all of them, most of them, are from the Bro & Co collection. You can see how perfectly it matches. Look at me planning ahead. Actually, I did not plan that. I just happened to know that I used that color palette because, duh, I designed it. I really wanted to work in an extra set of keys, but since there were keys on that card, I didn't want it to be on the right-hand side, and so it was a little bit of a bummer because I wanted to use those keys, but I'm going to use a key on the left-hand side instead. Of course, I had to add in the steering wheel, and then the title over here is going to be Legit Epic. I should have put down these tire treads before I put down the title, but I did not. At this point, I had been designing this layout for long enough that I was a little bit tired and slap happy. There we go. Okay, so I want to add in a little bit of texture as well. So I'm going to add in some of these brads. And I wanted to add in one with a sign, but there were just too many signs going on. So I'm going to add in this thumbs up and thumbs down, so you can see that I look very terrified in that photo. So I thought that the thumbs down was hilarious. And then I'm going to put the thumbs up on the right hand side with his license photos. And then I'm going to use a lot of the stars from the collection to create some clusters over there. Thought that level up was appropriate, and it added in a circle on the right hand side to bring in the circles from the left hand side, plus this brad as well. You can see a nice little circle cluster over there. I'm going to start putting down these chipboard stars. I'm still trying to work in that keychain. I'm just using an awl to poke a hole all the way through the card so that I can put those brads through. Yay, I found a place for keys. A whole mood. I love the slang in this collection because it's so, it dates the layout, right? The slang that you use in the moment puts the layout at a certain point in time in history, which I think I appreciate right now at the moment. So I'm going to create star clusters of 3 in each of these places where I'm putting them. I really wanted to use that too, but it was a little bit too big. I'm going to move that star up there in the top right because it's not in the right place. Using the colorful stars here on this page to add in just little pops of color where they need to be. And I'm going to call this good. So if you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I would love to have you. If you don't already, you can follow me over on Instagram. I'm at Traci M. Reed. I'd love to see you over there as well. And I will see you next time. All right, thank you.